Recording to the cloud. Recording in progress. Welcome, everybody. This is the 11th Zoom meeting for Navigating Everyone's Worldly Ship. Name of the group might be known better as Common Law Conversations, which oddly enough is moving further and further away from anything to do with common law, but that's okay. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about some real world application of the ANC. But first, I wanted to cover for folks, because a lot of folks will get on my calls on a recorded stuff, and they'll go to the most recent one, and they'll listen to the most recent one. And of course, the very first one that we did out of 10 was the basic one where we talked about what the ANC was. But I'm finding that we kind of almost need a precursor on each video, but I'm not going to do that every single time. But let's quickly cover what the ANC does for us. Okay. So real quick, I'm going to go enact screen sharing, and I'm going to bring up my ANC certificate just so anyone who's new, and also I have found that I really need to see this stuff over and over and over. And so real quick, I'm going to bring up the 3 certificates you get when you file your assumed name certificate in Minnesota. Okay. So let's see here. I think this is it. Okay, so here's the first assumed name certificate. Can folks see my screen? Nope, wrong certificate. Original filing, that's what we want. So when you file your assumed name certificate, this is the first thing you get. Okay, you get a certificate that looks like this. And basically what we're doing when we file an assumed name certificate is we are registering our business to do business in the state that we're in. Okay, so people may say, well, then why would I register in Minnesota if I'm in Tennessee or Texas or Arizona or Hawaii or Alaska or New Zealand or Australia or Germany or Greece? Because it does not matter where you're at. If your country operates on the central banking system, you can register your name in the state of Minnesota. Why? Well, because every single country that does business using the dollar, using the central banking system, and using the dollar as their reserve currency that they're basing their money off of has to be registered in the United States. And when I say in the United States, I don't mean the geographic region. I mean the city, the actual city. So a question to you guys, can someone tell me, can you see me talking and see my screen, or is it just my screen?
The screen sharing's not working for me, but I'm not on Wi-Fi, so.
Oh, okay.
It's just spinning, so that probably doesn't count.
Yeah, it doesn't count because it's just too much data for your Wi-Fi. So, what about you, Chad? Can you see my screen and see me talking, or can you only see my screen? I'm just trying to get Zoom here.
Yeah, I can see. I'm on my phone right now, but I can see the Minnesota thing and a little window on the top with you drinking your coffee.
There we go. We're good. As long as you can see me drinking my coffee, we're good. Okay.
I can get on my computer in a second.
Okay, no worries. No worries. Thank you, brother. Okay, yep. So every single country that is on the central banking system is registered to do business within the United States. A lot of countries are registered. I think Canada and Australia are registered in Delaware. But as long as they're registered in one of the states, because in the democracy, you've got 2 jurisdictions. You have the private, which is the republic. So when people say the Pledge of Allegiance for the republic for which I stand, that is the private. It's private jurisdiction. Okay? The public jurisdiction is the democracy. People say, oh, we live in a republic. And other people say, no, 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 we're spreading democracy. Spreading democracy is spreading the central banking system. It's spreading that first, middle, last name fiat currency system is what we're doing. That's why when we invaded Iraq after someone blew up some 7-Eleven convenience stores, then the first thing they did was they installed a central bank and a constitution in Iraq. What is a constitution? A constitution is a contract that is executed by a constitutor. What is the legal definition of a constitutor? A constitutor is someone who, by simple agreement, agrees to pay the debt of another. That's it. That's all a constitutor is. In order for you to be on the central banking system, you have to have a central bank in your country. You have to have registered within the United States, and you also have to. There was a third one. You have to have a constitution. So that's what you got to do. Now, that first, middle, and last name that the government made up for you exists in the public. Okay, and if anybody doubts that there's a public and a private, just pull out your dollar bill and see what it says on it. It says that it's good for debts in the public and the private. Those are your two jurisdictions. Now, there's a lot of jurisdictions. Okay, so if I run a Hardee's restaurant and you work for me, then you're in my jurisdiction. Okay, anytime somebody has control over you, you're in their jurisdiction. Anytime somebody has liability for you. So if you're operating with unlimited liability, you're not employed. You are, I'm not even going to say the S word. I'm going to say it, sovereign. But I hate that word. Gosh, I hate that word because none of us are sovereign. Okay. The only sovereign is our Lord Jesus Christ. That's it. Our creator. That's the only sovereign. So I hate the sovereign citizen movement. Oh, I hate it. Okay. It's ruined a lot of things. I learned some stuff from it, but it's not something I appreciate at all. So I think a lot of it is just distractionist crap. Okay. So there's many jurisdictions, but mainly we operate in the public and the private. Okay. When you were born, you got a birth certificate. It's the one that used the old occult practice of putting the footprint on the document. It was a shipping document is what it is. It actually, you were birthed via your mother's waters and you've landed in this ocean of commerce, right? And you have a vessel, and that vessel is your body, right? But they also created another vessel for you, which is your name, because we all can't run around without names. So we have this other vessel, and that vessel is a surname and a given name. Now, on this document, you will see my surname and my given name. My surname is Farrell, and my given name is William Ernest. Now, when your mother filled out the SS5, she converted that to something different. She converted that to a first, middle, and last name. And people may say, well, that's the same thing. No, it isn't. Look at it. A child can see that those two are different. Okay. If you go to your license, you will see this name at the top, the assumed name. If you go to your passport, you'll see this name down here. It's different. Okay. So when you're born, your mother probably converts your given name and surname on the SS5 form to a legal name, first, middle, last. When you apply for your passport, you do reverse. You're getting your legal name converted back into a surname and a given name. Okay. So those two things are different. This document is a government document that bears the seal of the great seal of the state of Minnesota. Seals are powerful. Okay. In the public, they're powerful. And well, even in the private, remember how the king used to put his seal on things, right? And you had the wax ring and all that good jazz. So this document shows that there is a difference in these two entities. Okay. Now we're going to flip over real quick. We're going to get away from this. We're going to flip over to a couple more documents here. As soon as I figure out where to go, because I've got all these things on my screen. I've got this toolbar at the top. Oh, I can move it. Okay. All right. So Facebook. That's not where I want to go. We want to go to here. Okay. Let's look at this real quick. This is the Idaho Uniform Business Organization Code. The reason that I chose Idaho for this call was because Idaho has some very interesting language inside of their stuff. Okay. Inside of their assumed name laws. Every state, I don't care which state it is, every state has assumed name laws. Okay. Let's look at this real quick. Okay. I know it's a legal reading and it's boring, but this is very insightful here. Okay. So what is an assumed business name? Okay. It's any name other than the true name. Now, this is interesting. Idaho is one of the few states that uses the word true name. I think Kentucky uses the word real name, but it's any state other than the true name of any filing entity. We're going to see this word entity a lot, or limited liability partnership. Now, you got to keep in mind, this stuff is written to be confusing on purpose. So you have to dissect it. Any name other than the true name of any filing entity or limited liability partnership under which the entity holds itself out for the transaction of business in the state. Okay. So if you have a certificate of birth, now you got a birth certificate when you were born from the hospital, it's private. It can't be used down at the DMV when you go to get your license at 16 or whatever age you can get your license at in your state. Okay. Your mother sent off the SS5 in a copy of the birth certificate. She got back a certificate of birth. They're two different documents. A birth certificate is in the private. The certificate of birth is in the public. Now, sometimes they transmute those names. They flip them to try to add more confusion, because that's where they want to keep you. They want to keep you in confusion. They want to keep you from thinking straight. Okay. And so you do the same thing when you get married. When you get married, you have a marriage certificate, but you go down and get a license and you get a certificate of marriage back from the government. So you're getting married in two jurisdictions at once. So if you and your spouse, your partner, go to a justice of the peace, or you go to someone who's in your church to get married, you're getting married before God, and the private is one jurisdiction. Okay. When you get the license, you're getting married in the public, and that's a certificate of marriage, and those two things are different. I've asked more than one person, hey, do you know where the title to your car is? And they're like, yeah, I got it in my glove box, man. I'm like, okay, show it to me. And they go get it, and it's a certificate of title. The original title is called the manufacturer's certificate of origin. And when you bought the car, if it came from the dealership, it was sent to the state by the dealership. And furthermore, you consented to it. Not only did you consent to it, you gave the dealership a limited power of attorney to send that document to the state. Okay. And if you hadn't signed that limited power of attorney and let them send the manufacturer's certificate of origin off to the state, they couldn't have done it. One of the things you can do if you want to go pay cash for a new vehicle and not have an interested party like a bank in it, you can demand that as part of this, the certificate of origin leaves with you. What will happen is the state will never know about that car. They'll never know the VIN number. Okay. That VIN number, once it gets into their system, stays there forever. And if you're driving around and you've rescinded that contract, if you've collapsed that trust that the vehicle exists in by giving the tags and the certificate of registration back to the state, they still have that VIN number in their system. So it would be really nice if you want to drive around on private tags to go to the dealership, purchase a vehicle, pay cash, and say, I want the certificate of the manufacturer's certificate of origin, the MCO, to come home with me as part of the sale. They'll do it. Okay. You may have to push them, but they'll do it. I know people have done it. And when that happens, the state never knows about that vehicle. So you get pulled over, they run that VIN number. It's not even in their system. It's pretty easy then to prove they have no jurisdiction over the vehicle. Okay. So you're driving around, you got your employee ID card called a license. You have your certificate of registration or certificate of title. You've got your registration. When you registered that vehicle, you gave it to the government. They're charging you a small fee to give it back to you. That's what your taxes are. Okay. So let's go on and get through this. Any name under which any individual or any group of individuals or other persons or any entity other than a filing entity. Okay. So basically it's saying any entity. This is what it's saying. In part A, it said any name other than the true name of any filing entity or limited liability partnership. And in part B, it's saying everyone else. Okay. That holds itself out for the transaction of business in the state of Idaho. Okay. So your state has these laws too. What does that mean? That means if you walk into Walmart, Kmart, Rural King, Kroger's, and you go to buy stuff, you're engaging in commerce. If you put something for sale on Facebook Marketplace, you're engaging in commerce. Anything you do in commerce, you're using that first, middle, last name. Now, you'll notice the word individual pops up a lot. What is an individual? And I'll tell you this right now. An individual is an unregistered legal name. That's all an individual is. When you do business with that legal name and you've not registered it, you are breaking your state's assumed name laws. And there's repercussions for that. What are the repercussions? Taxes, fines, jail, all those things are the repercussions. The need to get licenses. That's all what happens to individuals. they've purposefully set the system up so that if you're acting in it without registering the name, you're breaking the law. And when you break the law, you're opening yourself up to liability. Now, they'll never tell you in court you're operating under you're using a legal name illegally. They'll never tell you that because they want you to do it. It gives them power over you. Okay. So how do you reverse the birth certificate? Well, a lot of people just want to give it back and say, I don't want to use it anymore. But that makes it very difficult to act in commerce. So we register the name in the state of Minnesota. Why? Why Minnesota? Because it's the only door they left open for us to register the name appropriately. If you try to register your name in Kentucky, they call you an owner. If you try to register your name in like California, they want you to go get their form notarized. A notary can only witness the name being signed by the individual. That means if you get that signature notarized, you're agreeing that you're an individual. You're agreeing that you are the legal name. I've registered my name. Therefore, I'm not the legal name. I'm the holder of the legal name. And if you'll look right, let me pull the document back up. Hold on just a sec. Might take a second. That's not it. Here we go. If you look here, we've said, okay, the assumed name is William Ernest Farrell II. That is my business. That is a business. I have a business bank account that has that business name on it. That is a business. So if somebody comes up to you and says, are you Kmart? Can you be Kmart? No. Can you be Kroger's? No. Can you be Xerox? No. I can't be William Ernest Farrell II. That is a business name. And I am not a business. I'm a living, breathing man with 2 arms and 2 legs, fortunately. This William Ernest Farrell right here, this Farrell is the surname and William Ernest is the given name. That is the name my parents gave me at birth, that I was given one name and I inherited the other, the family name. Okay, so it's 2 different entities. Okay, you could almost say this is my real name. Okay, notice that I have care of written right here. That's because this entity it represents a living, breathing man, and a living, breathing man cannot have an address. Somebody's walking around with an address tattooed on their forehead, because if they left that address, then they would no longer have that address. They'd be in a different spot. Okay, you cannot give an address or a domicile to a living, breathing man. You also can identify a living, breathing man. Look at the word identify. ID an entity. Okay, there's some gravy in there. There's some truth gravy. Okay, so let's go back here. Individual means a natural person. What's a natural person? What's a person? A person is a corporation. What is a natural person? Well, they're just grabbling it up. You won't find the word natural person inside of Black's Law, I don't think. I think I've looked and it's not there. A natural person is just an individual. It's like when they define a word, but they use the word to define the word. It's like me saying, hey, what's an ostrich? I've never seen an ostrich. What's an ostrich? And you say an ostrich is the thing that looks and acts like an ostrich. It's meaningless. You can't use the word to define the word. Okay. So look at this right here. True name. Okay. In Kentucky, here's the trick they use in Kentucky. They say that the true name or the real name, they use the word real name. In Kentucky, they say the real name of the individual must include the surname. That doesn't mean it is the surname. It just must include the surname. They use lots of tricks. Okay. Oh, so you can go to your state, look up the assumed name laws. If you've not registered the name, you're breaking the law. Okay. Now, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to look at some actual real filings that we've done in court using the assumed name. Just a second. I'll pull that court documentation up. Okay. All right. Can somebody tell me if they can see the legal document that is on the screen right now? Okay, well, I'm going to assume you can unless somebody tells me you can't. All right, So let me tell you the background behind this. First off, I've changed all the names, all the numbers, all the addresses so that this is not going to identify. So this is not going to track anybody down to any one specific person. This is in a mortgage case. Okay, so someone is suing a bank that is alleging that the John Edward Dosen has a loan or has been given money for a home. Okay, and we all know that all debts are fraudulent, right? Because our credit is what creates the money. That's an entirely different subject that we will cover down the road. So you filed your assumed name. You're going to go to court, okay? And in this particular instance, this John Edward Dosen is acting as the plaintiff, okay? There's things that you're going to do if you are the defendant that you won't do if you're the plaintiff, okay? So if you're the defendant and you've registered your name, you really don't want to do any kind of motions or any kind of pleading in the case after you file your assumed name certificates. And I say certificates because there's 3 different documents that go along with the assumed name filing. We'll get to those in a minute. You don't really want to file anything into the case after that because by doing so, you're granting the court jurisdiction, okay? The court only has jurisdiction over the legal name. John Edward Dosen, the court has jurisdiction over. But I'm not John Edward Dosen if this were my filing. I am John Edward of the Dosen family. And people say, oh, you're just parsing it. You're just, tomato, tomato. It's different. Public versus private. Look at your dollar bill. The 2 jurisdictions do exist. Okay. Now, or look at your passport as compared to your driver's license. There's a good spot. Plaintiff's reply brief in support of its opposition to defendant's motion to dismiss plaintiff's amended complaint. Don't worry about that title. It's a title to a document. Whatever document you're doing is probably going to have a different title. Okay. So look at this. And the reason that I'm showing you this is just going to be 1 page out of 9. And I'm not going to show you the other 9 pages because only the first paragraph here is important. It says, now comes plaintiff, John Edward Dosen. Why? Who is the plaintiff in the case? It's not me. It's not the given name and the surname. The only entity that can act commerce is the legal name. Okay. And in this particular instance, John Edward Dosen is registered with the state of Minnesota. So he is legally able to conduct business in the state that he's doing this in. Okay. Now comes plaintiff Edward Dosen through the name holder thereof and living soul, and whose name is John E. Dosen. Now, if I were doing this, and this is not my document, so it would probably be slightly different, I would probably put Dosen, Cohen, John Edward. That's how I would do it. Okay, but if you read up on, have you ever seen an attorney or a judge who does not use their middle name, their middle initial with a period? We're not going to get into it right now, but I believe that this John E. Dosen is in the private and this John Edward Dosen is in the public. Okay, that's a whole other video series. Okay, we're just going to assume that the all caps name here and the John E. Dosen is the surname given name. Okay, who is legally registered to do business as John Edward Dosen, to respectfully file this reply brief in opposition to defendant's motion to dismiss plaintiff's amended complaint. Okay, so that's how you would start any of your documents in court if you were the plaintiff. Okay, you would want, and this particular wording is not sacrosanct. You may come up with different wording. This just does what we need to do, which is makes a differentiation between the legal name and the name holder. Okay, we want to do that. The court can't talk to Johnny Dosen. The court can't talk to the private person. They can only talk to the public person. And when you court and they call out that first, middle, last name, if you say that's me, you're now an individual and you're now screwed. What the judge should do the second that you say that's me in response to calling out that legal name is they should put you in jail for fraud. They don't because they have to make a dog and pony show of it. Okay. Apologies. So let's go to the next page and we're going to see a different document. Okay. Now, let's go back real quick. Why that disappeared. Why is this document, remember I said in a criminal case, you wouldn't want to file anything after the assumed name certificate because you would be giving the court jurisdiction over you. Okay. Why are they filing motions? Because when you are the plaintiff, all states have laws that allow anyone who is being sued to defend themselves, whether they're registered or not. Okay. So it doesn't matter if the party that you're suing isn't registered. Okay. It does. It does. We're going to get to that in just a second. But there's still a law that allows an unregistered person to defend themselves. Okay. So we're going to move on and we're going to show how you would lock the court up tight in any case. Okay. And you're going to, these documents are putting a court somewhere in a very difficult position. Okay. We've already had evidence of that. All right. Okay. So this is another document. Listen to this. This document is very interesting. The bank is being represented by an attorney who works for a private law firm. Now, when I say private law firm, what I mean is non-governmental. They don't actually work in the private. They're a public business like everything else. And yes, those words are graveled. We deal with what we got. Okay. So it's a non-governmental law firm. It's a for-profit law firm. Well, government's for-profit too, but we won't get into that. To the clerk of court, now comes plaintiff John Edward Dosen, through the name holder thereof and living soul, whose name is John E. Dosen, same paragraph as before, who is legally registered to do business as John Edward Dosen. See Exhibit A. What do you think Exhibit A is? Exhibit A is going to be the assumed name certificates, all three of them from the state of Minnesota. To respectfully notify you that now Joseph T. Maxwell is the attorney for the mortgage company for Big Brother Bank Corporation. Okay. Joseph T. Maxwell does not have legal right to transact business in the state of whatever state this is being filed in. For the name is registered with either the office of the Secretary of State or with an office of the clerk of court for a county in the, hold on, I got to move some windows here. For a county in the state of, oh, I left the state there. That's okay. And I believe no evidence exists otherwise. And Joseph T. Maxwell does transact business by filing documents under the name Joseph T. Maxwell into the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of whatever division. Okay. So what are we saying here? We're saying that the attorney who's actually filing documents in the case is doing so illegally because he's not registered his name. Okay. Now, you should go check your Secretary of State website for the actual fact. And for all you know, the attorney did register his name. I highly doubt it. I don't think you'll ever do that because what we're doing here is groundbreaking. Very few people even know about it. So odds are that attorney, now they're going to know what you're talking about after they study this stuff a while. Okay. But I don't think a judge sitting on a bench, even in federal court, sitting there going, yeah, I'm dealing with a bunch of unregistered names here. Okay. They're just given buttons to push. And although federal judges are amazingly good at contracting, I don't think they actually know this stuff until they see us filing this stuff. And then they figure it out real quick. So Joseph T. Maxwell does transact business. So the bank that Joseph T. Maxwell represents is a legal entity that has been registered. Okay. McDonald's is registered. All companies are registered. All corporations are registered because if they're not registered, they're not corporations, right? There are articles of incorporation in their business license as evidence of the registration. But the CEO who is representing the corporation is not registered. That's the weak spot. That's the Achilles heel. Okay. So what we're saying is okay, clerk of court. Look at number 5. The clerk of court has permitted this attorney who is unregistered, a non-registered business name to illegally transact business as Big Brother Bank Corporation. Because when the attorney files into a case, they're not filing it. They're using their name at the bottom of the document, but they are a representative. They're representing the corporation, right? But he's doing so with his name on the document. The Joseph T. Maxwell cannot sign the document as Big Brother Bank. He has to sign his name to it. And when he does so, he's doing so illegally because he's not registered his name. Okay. The clerk of court has permitted Joseph T. Maxwell, a non-registered business name, to illegally transact business as Big Brother Bank Corporation by allowing Joseph T. Maxwell, a a non-registered business name to file the following documents while legally doing business as Big Brother Bank Corporation. If someone were to go file documents into a case using your name, that's not their name, wouldn't that be illegal? Okay, well, if Joseph T. Maxwell is not registered to do business in this state, he's filing the documents in illegally. These documents that we're looking at here, these are groundbreaking. I've never seen these before. I'm sure there's someone out here that's done this. We don't know what's going to happen with this. So this is stuff on a judge's desk somewhere right now. And I can tell you that they're making phone calls to their cousin, who's also a judge in another state, and they're asking questions about what to do. Because if the judge allows this motion to go through, then he's admitting that anyone who is illegally doing business can't file into the case. But if he denies it, then he himself is opening himself up to liability. Okay. I would not want to be the judge in this particular case because he's in a very hard spot. I don't recommend you put courts into a hard spot, but when your freedom is on the line, when your house is on the line, yes, you do what you can, right? I mean, commerce is it's a battle. And in a battle, is there anything, what's the saying? All is fair in love and war. All is fair in war. Yes. There is no such thing as being unfair. You don't want to be dishonorable, but you don't, if I'm fighting you and I have a knife at my disposal and you don't, is it bad for me to grab the knife? Well, if we have rules, yeah, but on the battlefield, no, I'm going to grab whatever I can to dispose of my enemy. And this is what we're doing here. Okay. Let's go to the next page. And here, what we've done, what's being done is, we got some documents listed. We said the clerk of court does bear. Okay, I know that that's spelled differently, but we're getting into that whole syntax grammar stuff, and I'm not going to get into that in this call. Liability for any damages to John Edward Dosen for permitting Joseph T. Maxwell to illegally transact business as Big Brother Bank Corporation. Now, look at the signature. All rights reserved without recourse, without prejudice, by Johnny Dosen, name holder for doing business as John Edward Dosen, care of. Why care of? Because Johnny Dosen does not have an address. That's why the zip code is in brackets, because the Four Corners rule says that anything that's within four corners doesn't actually exist on the document. It's for informational purposes only. And that's what we're doing with the zip code here. So we don't want to give a zip code to Johnny Dosen because that puts Johnny Dosen in a federal jurisdiction. Depending on where you are in your learning, that may make sense. It may not, but keep studying if it doesn't, because you won't get it. Verification of notice. I, Johnny Dosen, hereby affirm pursuant to this U.S. code that I have read and understand the foregoing notice and exhibits thereto, if any, for the actions styled above and the facts stated in it are true. I, Johnny Dosen, declare or certify, verify, or state under penalty of perjury under the laws of the United States of America. Look how United States of America is categorized. I, Johnny Dosen, the private man, the United States of America. Go look at the Declaration of Independence and look how they capitalize it. There's meaning behind everything here. That the foregoing is true and correct. Executed on day 3 of September in the year of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, 2022, executed now time. Now we're getting into that grammar, syntax, parsing stuff, and that's for another call. I'm still learning about it myself, but now time. It's executed right then. All rights reserved without recourse, without prejudice, in the same signature. Okay. Next page is just a certificate of service. If you understand the administrative process, you'll not ever send anything without a certificate of service. Okay. So under perjury, pursuant to this U.S. code, this will certify that I, Johnny Dosen, have, now notice that's the private man, have served the below party with a copy within and foregoing and any exhibits thereto. Notice to clerk of court that Attorney Joseph T. Maxwell permitted to illegally file in a case. By mailing the same with sufficient postage to ensure delivery to the law firm of Ditcham, Quick, and Hyde. That's a joke. I, Johnny Dosen, blah, 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 blah. Same signature and stuff like that. Now, if you're looking at this document, you're thinking, I can never compose this. You need to go get your law degree with a jurisdictionary. Okay. we've got links on the group for jurisdictionary. You will not survive in court if you do not understand motions, how to compose them, and how to file them, and how to work in court. You cannot go into Spain and not speak Spanish and expect things to go smoothly. If you're going to go into a court, you're going to have to use their documents, and there's nothing wrong with doing that if you're the plaintiff. Okay, may even have to do it as a defendant, but that's further the road. Okay, so I'm going to flip back and stop screen sharing. Well, actually, you know what? Real quick, we're going to stop sharing. And have we had any questions yet? Okay, so we're just going to assume we got no questions yet. Okay, and anybody that wants to, when I put this up on YouTube, can go back and look at those documents if you need them as a template or something. There's nothing wrong with using a template, but make sure you always understand what you're doing, because you don't want to grab somebody else's document and throw it at the wall thinking that you're going to get through just by filing documents. You have to know what you're doing, okay? Because you will get tested. So I'm going to go back to screen sharing real quick, because there is one more thing I want to cover. And you'll have to just give me a second to find it. Okay. We've seen this document before. This is a really cool write-up by two folks. One's an attorney and one's like a PhD with a law degree. I think Margaret Megan Walton has a law degree, PhD in law, and I think Thomas E. Rutledge. Notice Thomas E. Rutledge, who's the attorney. Look how I put his name, Thomas E. Rutledge. That dot right there after E has, and look at all the presidents. How do all the presidents, the majority of them, how do they write their name? Start looking at that stuff. There's meaning to that, okay? So let's look at this real quick. This is a really cool write-up on, this is called, if you do a search on Google for Kentucky assumed name statute, and you use one of these names like Rutledge or Walton, this is going to come up. It's got the big old colorful logo there, so it's easy to spot. This is worth reading through, even if you are not geographically located within Kentucky or in the jurisdiction of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, because it's very interesting how they write this stuff up. Okay. And a lot of people have a lot of difficulty understanding just how powerful the ANC filing is, because it's so simple. We're all looking for amazingly complex outs, right? And that's not the way this works. What got you into this system? Their certificate of birth. You were a baby. You didn't even do it. Your mother did it, probably while she was laying there under the effect of drugs after giving birth. And these papers were shoved into her face, and she just filled them out and signed them, and off it went. And now you're in this game of commerce, right? And that's not necessarily an evil or bad thing. What is evil or bad is if you think you are that legal name. You're not. You're not that legal name. How can you be? What is a name? A name is a collection of symbols and sounds. You're not that legal name. You're not even the private name. If you really want to dice tomatoes here, you've got three parts to you, just like God. That's what the whole made in the image of God means. It doesn't mean that God necessarily has a nose, two lips, and two eyes. I don't know what he looks like, but he might. But what do we have? We have a soul, we have a spirit, and we have a corporal body, right? Okay, well, there's three aspects to us, right? If you cut out my tongue, which might please some people, talk a lot. If you cut out my tongue and you throw it across the floor, is that tongue me? Well, it is me, but it's not connected to me, right? It's not directly physically connected to me. That's the same way that our bodies work. If you cut off my finger, am I still me? You cut off my hand, am I still me? How much of me do you have to cut off before I stop being me? All of it. Like the body's me, the soul's me, the spirit is me. And really and truly, when you get down into the core of this stuff, it's pretty deep. It's also pretty simple. Okay. So the Kentucky Assumed Name Statute was significantly revised in 2006 with the objective of doing these things here. I'm not going to go through them. But why certificates of assumed name? We're just going to cover a real short bit of this. The purpose of the Assumed Name Statute, this is all states, okay, what they're talking about here. The purpose of the Assumed Name Statute is to preclude sailing under false colors so that the persons doing business may know who is the real party to the transaction. This is one of the most important sentences that you can possibly read in regards to talking about assumed names. Okay, let's read it again. The purpose of the assumed name statute is to preclude sailing under false colors. So when I talk about how we're birthed into admiralty law, I know that there's people who are like, oh, that's all a bunch of conspiracy theory stuff. This is an attorney and somebody with a doctorate in law who's writing this. Okay, so these aren't my words. Sailing under false colors. When you are driving down the road, where's your flag? It's that government tag on the back. And I've had people say, well, why don't we just take the tag off and drive without any tag? That makes you a pirate ship. Pirates are not good people. You don't want to be a pirate ship. Okay. I know that Pirates of the Caribbean has made it all sexy and stuff, but a pirate is actually a scoundrel. They were people worthy of death because they're out there stealing crap and doing a lot of dishonorable stuff. And it's just, you don't want to be a pirate. Okay. You don't want to go around without any flag at all. You need to fly a flag. So if you put a private tag on your vehicle, you're still kind of a pirate. Okay. But if you put a tag on your vehicle and it has your Minnesota certificate filing number, then anyone who runs that number, and trust me, we have a way to get that number into the police databases. Okay. There's a way to do that. We've talked about it on previous calls. The cop's going to run that number before he gets to your window. Guarantee it. That number's on the back. They're going to run it. If you have that number on a no trespassing sign at your gate to your land, run it. And it's going to come back to you. Well, it's going to come back to your business, right? And you're no longer flying under false colors, which is what you're doing. If you're using the legal name illegally, you're flying false colors. Because if I walk up to you and punch you in the nose, how do you know who I am to file a claim against me? You don't. Okay. If you hand me a driver's license, does that identify me? No, it doesn't. What if that business address isn't correct? If a cop walks up to you and says, I want to contract with you, and how's he going to do that? He's not going to say, I want to contract. He's going to say, what's your name? I want to see your ID. That's how they start contracting. Okay. They're contracting. When a cop, CPS agent, judge, lawyer, anybody walks up to you and start asking you questions in official capacity, they're wanting to contract. If they want ID, you are a man, you can't be identified. Or maybe you're a woman and you can't be identified. Well, we all know that men and women can't be identified, even as being different between men and women in this current century, right? But we're not going to go there. Biblically, you're either a man or a woman, and you can't be identified because you're a living, breathing man or woman with a soul and a spirit, 2 arms, 2 legs, and a heart. So you should have your ANC stuff on you. I shrunk mine down so that I actually have them in my wallet. But I carry a backpack too, and I have my full assumed name certificates in there. And if a cop walked up to me and said, hey, I need your ID, first thing I'd do, I wouldn't get in the whole, I don't have a name or legal name or private name. Just hand him your ANC documents. Here you go. You want to know who I am? There I am. If you need to file a claim against me for something, you've got my assumed certificate number. You can look me up on the Minnesota Secretary of State website. You can find me in the system. You should even have your Minnesota certificate of assumed name filed with your local, or at least the number filed in your local court records. And that's something that we can get into later. But the next thing you should ask is what? Okay, so cop standing in front of you and he says, hey, what's your name? I want to do business with you. I want to contract with you. You hand him your assumed name certificate. If he wants to continue, what should you get? His assumed name certificate. If he can't provide that, inside hint, he can't. Guess what? Don't contract with him. If I walk up to you and I say, hey, I'll give you $10 million if you'll let me punch you in the nose, but I don't have the $10 million on me. I'm going to pay you later. Why would you let me punch you in the nose unless you have my name and my business address? Because there's a possibility I'm not going to pay. I mean, if you got that offer, you probably won't get paid up front, but you see what I'm saying, right? Like you should have that information with you when you're ready to contract. Otherwise, if there's a claim, how are you going to file the claim? And we should all make ourselves available for claims. Because if you know who you are and you understand this stuff, getting a claim is not that difficult to handle. Okay. We'll handle that in future videos. Right now, I'm just trying to get folks to understand why you want to do the assumed certificate. Because it keeps you from sailing under false colors. It keeps you from being liable for all this crap they apply to individuals. Okay. If an individual, individual is an unregistered person, right? They have to protect individuals because individuals are incompetent. Why? Because they're walking around committing fraud all the time every time they use their legal name. When they register to vote, they commit fraud. When they hand their driver's license to a cop, they're committing fraud. When they tell that name to a judge or a CPS agent or anybody else, they're committing fraud. When you pay your gas bill with that legal name, you're committing fraud unless you've registered the name. Can't get that drilled into everybody's head good enough. He or she is entitled to know that XYZ is the assumed name of 123 Inc. And that in the event of a claim, it is against 123 Inc. that suit should be brought. Okay. Listen to this. This is a cool little paragraph here. We believe, and this comes from a court case, I think. Or it comes from a court. We believe that its purpose is to permit persons, person is a legal entity in all caps name, right? A means of discovering the true identity of the parties with whom they are doing business and accordingly prevent fraud and deception by business entities which seek to sail under false colors. So we've got that again, that under false colors. Stop sailing under false colors and register your danged name. Okay. Today it is provided that no individual or business entity may conduct business under other than its real name unless a certificate of assumed has been filed. If you go to court and you say I'm that legal name and you've not registered that name, you don't have license to use that name, you're using it illegally, the government owns it, and you're committing fraud. Okay. So with that, we're going to keep tonight kind of short. It's 8:57. I've been blabbing on for about 47 minutes now. And so we're going to go to the chat and see if anybody has any questions. We're going to open up the floor to anybody who wants to say anything. I'm not going to stay on here much longer. I'll stay on here until about 9, 10, 15, 9, 10, 9, 15 or so, and then I got to go. But I'll leave things open for folks to continue to talk if you want to do so. So I'm going to kill screen sharing now and ask if anybody wants to have the floor.
Real quick. In your scenario, cop pulls you over and you give him your ANC. What's likely to be his next
move?
His next move.
He's going to shove it back into the window at you, and he's going to say, I need to see your driver's license.
Then what do?
Say, that tells you who I am right there. Don't take it back. Say, here, you need to see those documents. Like, to protect yourself, you need to see those documents. Now, we're going to make a distinction here. If you're driving around with public tags on the back of the car, you just entrap the officer, okay? Have a little compassion for this guy who's probably got a kid and a wife at home. Or maybe it's a woman and she's got a husband and a kid at home. I don't know. But it's another man or another woman. And if you have public tags on the back of your vehicle, you've kind of entrapped because the assumption is that you're a government employee. So a little difference here between the private tags. So if he sees the private tags and he pulls you over, then you know what? Unleash the gates of personal liability here, right? Like you shouldn't have pulled me over in the first place. Now, so far, I've been in a vehicle.
He caught you, legitimately speeding. Right?
Okay. So we know that the statutes and laws only apply to the legal name. You have a document showing a distinction between the legal name and the actual real man or woman. Therefore, there's no way you can even have a driver's license because a business can't drive. Basic logic, right? They're trying to trick us into a fiction. Is what they're trying to do. They're trying to trick us into a fiction. So when they say, I need to see your license, your best bet at that point is to say, well, this serves as all the papers I need to travel. I think you need to run that number and make sure that I'm actually registered with the Minnesota Secretary of State, and that should take care of things. At that point, you're going to be in the backwards and forth, and the police officer is going to try to get under his jurisdiction. And now you're entered into commerce. At that point, I would say if he continues on, like go run that number, ask your dispatcher, you may want to, and I'm very lenient with people. I'll tell a cop, you need to go talk to your supervisor because the amount of liability that you're about to bring onto you it's not good. It's not healthy. You don't want to do this. Like go
Well, hey,
run that
dude, you were
number.
going you were going 20 miles an hour over the speed limit. And
Please
I gotta give you,
please forgive me. That's what I would say. Please forgive me. So at that point, he has a choice to make. He either can say, I forgive you, and then he needs to let you go, or he's not going to say anything. He's going to continue to press. He's going to continue to press. That's where you need to ask for his. I'm a registered entity. Are you registered? Because you're not registered, that you're doing business illegally.
you pulling the sovereign citizen crap on me. You were
Yeah.
cheater.
That's what he'll say. He'll say, are you a sovereign citizen? Are you one of those sovereign citizens? And my response to that, now we're at the point of question and answer. And if you have no training in this, if you don't know what you're doing, your best bet to ask at this point is, am I under arrest? He's going to say no, because he can't arrest you yet, because he shouldn't have even pulled you over, especially if you have private tags. He shouldn't have pulled you over. But let's just say you got public tags, okay? He shouldn't have pulled you over, but he did because you're flying the colors of an employee, right? And there's nothing saying that I, a living man with 2 arms, 2 legs, can't get into somebody's vehicle. Like if you own Hardee's, I can get in a Hardee's vehicle and drive around. There's nothing stopping me from that as long as I'm not stealing the vehicle, right? So just because I'm driving a state car with the employee tags on the back doesn't mean I am a state employee. Just because I'm standing in McDonald's doesn't mean I'm a McDonald's employee. So, but your best bet if you're a newbie at this stuff is to stick to 2 questions and 2 questions only. Am I under arrest? Am I free to go? If you say, am I under arrest? And he says yes. Shut your mouth. Don't say another thing. Everything you say can and will be used against you, but it can't be used for you. If he says no, then ask the question, am I being detained or free to go? Now, what he's probably going to say, he's going to say no. Okay. In which case, go back to question number 1. You continue to do that. Now, at some point, this poor officer is going to go call his supervisor. At that point, every instance of this I've seen has resulted in them coming back, handing them back the assumed name certificate paperwork, telling them with a tongue lashing, don't speed in my jurisdiction anymore. I've yet to see someone arrested who showed the assumed name certificate. That doesn't mean it can't happen. It can.
And that would be even if you had even if you had state tags, right?
Yes.
Good.
Now,
This is
by having those state tags, you're actually increasing your liability by having those state tags on your vehicle. You're increasing your liability.
Right, but that's no different than if I'm an employee for Hardee's driving a Hardee's truck, right?
Right.
I have my ANC and stuff like that, but the public tags, if you think of it as I'm just driving a Hardee's truck, I'm making deliveries, whatever, right?
Right.
So he's trying to get you to give him your corporate license, driver's license, so that he can charge you with speeding.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So he can put a charge against the legal name. He wants to charge the legal name because that's what they do to make money. They charge like a credit card charge.
Right. Well, that's an epiphany to me when you reminded you what you're doing is you're just driving in a corporate car. Okay.
Yep.
They don't give a ticket to Hardee's, right?
Nope. They give it to the individual who's an unregistered business.
Right. They can't give it to Hardee's.
Right.
So, which is what they try to, even though it's your car with your public tags is a corporate thing. They're not given because you have a public tags on,
Right.
that does trap you semantically, but he's not giving a ticket to the car, the
He
company
can't-
that owns
He
the car.
can't give a ticket to a business. And that's what the assumed name certificate does. It separates you from the business. So he can't give a ticket to that legal name now because it's just a business. And if I'm in court and I show that that legal name is just a business, I can show other evidence of that. I can show I have a business bank account. There's different things I can show that is a bit. Now I wouldn't do that. That's not going to enter into the equation. But the fact of the matter is I am a business. You cannot give a ticket to McDonald's. You can't put McDonald's in jail, and you can't put William Ernest Farrell II in jail, at least not legally or lawfully, because it's a business. Who will you put in jail? You'll put me, the living man, in jail, and that living man has a lot of power in the system, and I can go after you, the police officer. I can go after you directly. If you damage me, a living man, there is no corporate veil. So if I'm riding around with a driver's license, a corporate tag, and a cop pulls me out my window and knocks me over the head, if I try to sue him directly, it's not going to work. Why? Because what they'll do is they'll dismiss the case, but they can't do that when you're a living man. You can't. I can go after him individually, civil court. Okay, and that has been. I've seen an instance where that was confirmed too, where a police officer was told by a sergeant, let him go before you get sued. I personally have been in a vehicle 4 times now with police behind me, private tags, and each time they've not stopped. That doesn't mean they can't. Okay? You can have body armor on, you can have a gun, you can have armed men at your back, but if I really want to punch you in the nose, I can. There's nothing going to stop me. So if a cop really wants to arrest you, he can. Don't ever take it up on the side of the road. Keep your mouth shut. Let him know what his liability is. Do what he says. He's got a gun. Go to jail. Handle it later. But those 2 questions, am I under arrest? Am I free to go? It's really the only 2 questions you need to ask. Okay. Now, cops are really good at trying to get you to put yourself under their jurisdiction. They'll say things like, do you have anything dangerous in the car? The second that you answer a question, you are getting deeper into the noose. Don't answer the question. Do you have any evidence I have anything? I understand you are officer safety. I am a man of peace. Do you have any evidence I'm committing a crime? Don't even address the thing in the car thing. Do you have any evidence I'm committing a crime? Well, no, I just got to make sure I'm safe. Well, you look safe to me. And you would be a lot safer if we weren't standing here on the side of the road talking about esoteric stuff. If you have evidence I've committed a crime, I'll put the handcuffs myself. If I've damaged someone, I'll put the handcuffs on myself. Otherwise, do you have an assumed name certificate? Under arrest? Well, no, you're not under arrest. Am I free to go? No, I'm detaining you until I figure out who you are. Well, you've done got my documentation. It's from the Minnesota Secretary of State. Here you go. Do you have your registered assumed name? Do you have your assumed name certificate? I don't even know what this is. I'm sorry. It's not my job to teach you what the law is. Well, I know the law. Well, I'm glad. Am I under arrest? Am I free to go? Am I under arrest? Am I free to go? It's going to be very unnatural to you because you're not used to being that way. The goal is to be confrontationally unconfrontational. Wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. Never, ever show aggression. I don't care what they do. If they reach in the car and grab you, go limp. Do not fight, ever. There's no need to do it. Jesus did not fight when they come to arrest him. And as a matter of fact, he rebuked Peter for chopping off the guy's ear with his sword. Put the ear back on. You don't want to get in that position. Hopefully nobody's lost an ear that you need to put back on or nothing like that. But you can stick to those 2 questions. Am I under arrest? Am I free to go? So I recently, not too recently, it's been quite a few months ago, I had expired tags, no license, and I pulled off an exit, and it was at night. And at the end of the exit were a whole bunch of police lights. And it was too late for me to turn around or go past or anything like that. I'm like, oh, here we go. So I pull up there, I put my window down, I put my vehicle in park, and I immediately stuck both my hands out the window. Roll my window down, stuck both hands out the window. Now, that's my approach. Your approach may vary. I just like to show that I don't have a weapon in my hands. I don't want to get shot because a cop thought I was reaching in my glove box or something. So I stick my hands out the window and say, hey, how you doing? He said, we're pretty good. I'm Officer so-and-so with such and such department. What we're doing here tonight is we're making sure that people aren't driving drunk. He said, are you driving drunk? And I said, well, have you caught many drunk drivers? And he said, yeah, we've caught a couple tonight. I said, well, good job. He said, can I see your license? So I totally red herringed him on the are you driving drunk thing. He said, can I see your license? And I said, no. I said, unfortunately, I can't give it to you. He said, why not? I said, there ain't one here. So I said, I don't have one. He said, where's it at? I said, it might be on the kitchen table. It might be on the filing cabinet. To come to think of it, it might be in the top drawer of my desk. He said, do you have registration with you? I said, no, I don't have that either. He said, why not? I said, it's probably with the license. Now, notice what I said, probably. It's probably with my license. My name's it. He said, okay. He said, give me just a second. He goes back to my vehicle. He looks at my tags. My tags are expired by like 2 years. And I shouldn't even have them with tags at that point, but that was before I still had tags on the vehicle. I just couldn't renew them because I didn't want to. I wanted to renew them, but I couldn't because I didn't want to. So he comes back and he says, all right, have a good night. And I was so surprised. I actually leaned against the door and I said, huh? And he said, have a good night. I said, oh, well, I want you to have a good night too, but why you let me go? Like, I was genuinely curious, and I don't have a whole lot of worries about going to jail or any of that stuff. To me, it's just another opportunity to try new things, meet new people. Sounds nuts, but that's the way I am. And he said, you can go. All right, have a good night. He didn't have probable cause to stop me. Therefore, anything he tried to arrest me for would be moot. Like in a when they do these, what are they called? When they set up the roadblock. When they set up a roadblock, you actually don't have any obligation to give them anything. There's many a person who's just cracked their window that much and said, I'd like to be on my way. And they just stick with that. Okay. Because there's no evidence of a crime, right? As long as you don't have an open container of vodka in your beer in your vehicle, they really have there's no evidence of a crime. And so a lot of folks will put their license, if they are driving with a license, registration, and insurance, in a baggie. They'll stick it out the car and then the window up on the bag and say, there you go. They won't talk. They don't talk at all, which might get your window busted out, but I've never known of that happening yet. Most of the times they wave you on through after beating on your window and telling you got to roll your window down. And you roll your window down about that much. You say, I don't feel safe. I'm not going to give you any information. Can I go on about my way? Okay. The goal is to never be confrontational. May I go? Am I under arrest? Am I being detained? Am I under arrest? Am I being detained? If those are the only two sentences that ever come out of your mouth, you'll do yourself a lot better than 99.999% of people. That's all. Anybody else have anything? Cool. Well, I'm going to head out. Tons of things to do. I'm going to stop the recording, and if folks want to chat with each other, they can. You know how to get a hold of me if you're on this call. Love you guys. Thank you for showing up for the call, and we'll see you soon.